Welcome to this week's NORA Startup webinar, number 27, where we will talk about AI startup stories. In this week NORA Startup webinar, you will meet some of NORA Startup members. You will meet Mygon.io, independent AI natural language processing company, and with the speaker Knut Magnar Ånestad, you will meet Hypatia Learning and EdTech company that develops standardized digital infrastructure, Erlend Øverby, who will represent them, and you will meet Skyfri, a solar industry AI company represented by Aslan Shamsuddin. They will present themselves and their experience on how to become a successful AI startup with possibilities and which typical pitfalls we should avoid. We'll end the webinar with a plenary discussion on common interests, synergies, and ideas, and how we might all get better at helping each other. We will explore and discuss questions such as why should a researcher think about starting a company? How can we make sure that AI startups get the best AI competency out there? How can we get data? How can we meet the demands out there with AI world? To host it will be me, Morten Goodwin, who is a professor in artificial intelligence from University of Agder. And the most important people here are, of course, you, the audience listening to this webinar. In case you have any questions, and I certainly hope you do, please ask them in the chat or in the question answering system, and I will make sure that these questions will be raised during the discussion phase. We'll have 3 talks today. We will have talks from, as I said, Mygon, Hypatia, and Skyfri. They will all be between 10 and 15 minutes. And the first one out is Mygon.io by Knut Magnar Ånestad. And Mygon is an independent natural language company that develops solutions for contract review to speed up the cumbersome legal work. And they claim that they can save up to 90% of the contract review time with their products. So we're very interested in here, how can they actually achieve this and how have they done this to be such a success? So Knut Magnar, please let us hear something about Mygon.
Thank you, Morten, for presenting me and Mygon, introducing us. And let me present Mygon to you guys. And what is Mygon? Well, first of all, Mygon is the team. You know, like any startup, this is a team that's basically focused around legal competency. We need to solve legal issues, legal questions. So most of us are lawyers, but we're tech lawyers, and even the technical people, they have legal competency and the competency to do development and data engineering as well. So it's an international team from Sweden, Norway, and Ukraine. What is a team without the drive, the common vision that drives you forward and decides what you want to achieve? Well, this is a scarcity in the legal industry, because lawyers tend to think that, well, the way we're working, the way we're doing things is the best way and the only way. But in our team, we share the common drive and the common vision that there must be a better way to solve even legal questions. So how do we do that? Well, Mygon is also the technology. We have an intelligent legal review platform, which uses state-of-the-art artificial intelligence with a set of transformers and other technology in order to do a review assessment of the contract types. So we have a well of different contract types, data processing agreements, NDAs, privacy policies, end user license agreements, and also now professional services agreements. So we're building these reviews on top of our platform using the AI technology. So what does this technology do? Well, they deliver review of these contract types to lawyers in organization, to the business units, and to the compliance officers, different parts of the organizations. So we also look at this as a journey, because we have these contracts now, we have the platform, and we have also new agreements all the time coming into the platform. So then we attack the next one, and then in the long term, we want to make a document and a contract agnostic tool. You can put in any contract and get the assessment and get out of it to tell you what to do next with this contract. So what does this look like? Well, you get a contract, you either submit it to the platform, or you send it to an email address that's designated for it, and it gives you back in less than a minute this report. It reads the contract, understands the content of it from a legal aspect, the legal entities, the legal concepts within the contract. Is understood by the service. It doesn't really matter how it is written. So that's the point. It's not a text analysis in that sense. Then it makes a contract card telling you this is that type of agreement, these are the parties, the purpose of this agreements, the contract period and such. So it gives you an overview of the basics of the contract. And then also, it tells you that it has a compliance score of a certain percentage, telling you that, well, most of this contract is okay. There are some issues to be addressed. It also tells you that it has reviewed everything in the contract that you submitted. And the next part of it is this. Well, this is the real value of it, because here it says, well, we found different legal concepts that are not okay, not compliant with the best practice that we have given to the system as well. So there are issues you need to address. It tells you right away what the issues are. And then it also tells you where the criteria is met, where this contract is actually according to the compliance matrix that we have created. So by this, you can make fast decisions. You maybe you don't even need a lawyer to look at it and can sign it right away, saving you 7 to 10 days of waiting for a feedback on this. We deliver this as a white label solution with a law firm or other organizations in between. We do not deliver to dentists. They're just solely for which is the largest law firm in the world. But we do have law firms, large law firms, that we are building this for, so they can sell this as a solution that gives legal advice that they would normally use lawyers for. So this is the white label solution, and then we also deliver it as an integrated solution with other technology like contract lifecycle management, but could be any technology where it fits in as part of a workstream service as well. But the main our main customers is of course big companies, legal departments, as we see with the customers. Okay. So what's different with Mygon compared to other legal AI? We developed this Mygon quadrant in order to explain that. It does recognition at a totally different level than other services. And with the recognition, meaning you understand the legal text in a special way, we can do also better assessment of the text. A lot of AI in the legal space is made with different types of AI technology. Very few use transformers. So they would use like pattern recognition, spacey, and technology like that in order to make a picture of a text and find sort of the same patterns in other texts, and then do recognition in that sense. So this is only, you know, to explain where it is and why it is better than a lot of the other tools in the market. So Mygon is the solution, of course. What is it a solution for? Well, a lot of companies, amongst them our client Tele2, has a legal and compliance delivery capacity. It consists of internal legal and what they buy of external legal. Well, this is cluttered in a way by NDAs, data processing agreements, end user license agreements, and professional services agreement, and other high volume and low medium complexity work, meaning they don't have the visibility, they don't have the capacity to do all the work they should do, and at least not to focus on the work they should focus on, and they cannot deliver fast enough to the business organization that they are a service to. So what do? Well, we don't take it away, but we bring it down to a very small level, so it opens up the visibility of the legal department and the total delivery capacity of legal and compliance issues to the business like this. And it might also move the task from the legal department and down to the business units and such as we explained before. So Mygon, what more is it? Well, it's our customer success stories. So these are some of our customers. You know, the Norwegian prime customer at the moment, I would say, is Nordic Semiconductor, which really uses this for NDAs, all their NDAs, and will move this out into the organization. So all the salespeople will use this instead of the legal department, taking down the lead time for an NDA review to a minute or two instead of a week to 10 days. So this means for other legal departments and other corporate legal, as it is called as well. Victoria Swedimark, who owns a consultancy firm in Sweden, she says, well, the corporate legal now needs bold leaders that can take the challenge of evolving how law is carried out. And this is exactly what we do. This is our success story with Nordic Semiconductor, that we got a nice article in Finansavisen in Norway some time back. And what does this mean? Well, it means for AI tools in legal domain in 2022. This is like opening or bursting open the already open doors, but AI tools will outperform using lawyers who don't use AI tools, and it will outperform using lawyers who use them, and it will dramatically outperform lawyers dramatically outperform not using lawyers at all, taking the risk of not doing a review of contracts in that sense. Well, Christian at Nordic Semiconductor, he's part of the legal department. He says, well, our small team of 3 people, we are freed to do more interesting and larger tasks. Well, what more is Mygon? Well, Mygon is the future. We will bring on more customers, more white label customers, and therefore we are hiring new developers at the moment. So if you know somebody, or if you're out there and you want to work with us doing this, transforming the legal market, this is definitely an opportunity. So follow us on LinkedIn and see how our story develops. Thank you from Mygon.
And thank you, Knut Magnar. What an interesting story. You speak both to the nerd of me when you talk about transformers, which is one of the highlights of the deep learning AI community, but also the person who thinks lawyers are expensive, we can automate part of it. So my question first here is, how much are you addressing the Norwegian area of law and contracts, and how much are you addressing the international world? Because I understand, for the little I understand of legal tech, those are very different worlds.
Well, basically, within the areas of contracts that we are addressing, like NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, they are conceptually not very different all around the world. So they can be handled because they are professional agreements between professional parties, you know, limiting the one party to disclose information about the other party, or mutual often as well. So that's one area. And then we do the data protection area, which has the GDPR regulations. So we do the assessments according to the GDPR regulations. That means it's valid in all of Europe, and actually it's valid to everybody doing business with the European Union countries. And this GDPR is also sort of a template for legislation all around the world. And same with professional services agreements. You know, they're between you and I. You deliver a service to me, and it doesn't, you know, it's not regulated that much. But we can also do local regulations in our assessments. Then we do a playbook version of it. So we tweak the playbook that we do the assessments according to, and we train it to read and understand the local requirements.
That is truly interesting, and we'll listen more to how this has actually become such a success as it already has in the debate section. And we then swiftly move over to Hypatia Learning by Erlend Øverby. Different context here, because now we're talking about not legal tech, but ed tech, education technology. Hypatia was established in 2017 and is meant to give a standardized digital infrastructure to school owners and the opportunity to manage all information, which is a lot, that students produce through their digital learning activity. So please, Erlend, tell us more about Hypatia.
Yeah, I'll thank you, and I'll hope you hear me well. First of all, I think I need to start with a disclaimer, because I saw that in the invitation for this seminar, we are promised her successful stories on how to become successful AI companies and how to avoid pitfalls and see possibilities. Hypatia Learning is still in its early stage of applying AI and trying to understand how AI will change education. And we think that the future of education is data-driven, based on insight from learners' digital learning activities. And as you know, there's a lot of data being produced, and in the commercial world, you know that when you are reading a newspaper, that data is shared with advertisers, with content providers, with everyone who can benefit from that insight on what you are actually interested in. And we see that that's not fully being used in education yet. And we think there's a lot of opportunity in tapping into using the data from our learning activities. But first, I would like to try to give you some background about myself and the company. First of all, Hypatia is the name of a Greek female philosopher who lived in 300-ish, and she established the school of Hypatia that remained for about 300 years. So I think we have a nice touch with the name of Hypatia Learning, looking into the history of Hypatia, the scientist and the female philosopher. I did a first startup in 1986. And in the 1990s, I was a sort of expert on HTML and high time. And HTML, as many might know, is the generic description language used for HTML. And later become XML for describing semantics and data. And in 2010, I partnered with other people and did another edtech startup called Webucation that became LearnWays, who still exists. And since then, I've also been active in global standardization, and as for the last 10 years, I've been sharing the ISO work on standardization of learning technologies, or edtech. And I'm now trying to re-establish this work in Europe as well, developing a standardized digital ecosystem for the edtech communities throughout Europe. So there's my background is very much on the technical side, not much on the teaching side. And I've been doing a lot of standardization, which is kind of high-level activities, making sure that technology actually can talk to each other and become more democratized and easier to deploy. And I think that's important for technology to scale. throughout communities and countries and across regions is that they are based on the same building blocks and are able to actually communicate and share data between different systems. So we think that the future is data-driven, and in that there's a few challenges in how do we get access to data, and they have the EU regulations surfacing like GDPR, and they have the Schrems, and they have the AI Act surfacing. And what's special with EdTech and schools is that learners, they are not, I think it's called consent competent, because they are young. And so there's a role of as parents to grant access or give consent to the use of our children's data. And there's a lot of discussion if that's needed or not, since there are some other principles applying in the schools, but still I think it's important that we have control of how data is being used and governed and managed. So to address that, we have developed a digital learning infrastructure that gives the school owners and the education institutions the opportunity to govern all data being produced by the learners. So we are actually, with the infrastructure developing, are kind of separating between the tools that are reading and producing and consuming data from where the data is being stored and governed. So instead of having everything within the silo with the tools, you can then separate the tools from where data is being stored, and the infrastructure we have, the school can then decide where its data are supposed to be or want to be managed. And it makes it easier to be GDPR compliant. It makes it easier for giving consent if that's desirable, and it gives also the schools the opportunity to provide long data that you can kind of see trends of data and supporting the learners throughout their kind of lifelong learning journey that you're starting. So there's a lot of opportunity when you are gathering data in one location. And also we see that within EdTech, in schools, learners are using many different tools for learning math. For example, in Norway, we have mathematic.org, we have Kikora. People are using stuff from resources from Gyldendal and all the major publishers. And for an educator to get an overview of what the learner has been doing, he needs to log into each of these systems to see the data. And if data is supposed to be shared through a hub, or any system can access any of the data sources, well, we have some GDPR and consent issues that need to be addressed. And having all data in one location, it kind of opens up a new opportunity for looking into how this data is being managed and used. So part of our then AI journey is that we are in a research project with Østfold University College and Volda University College and Halden Municipality. And the research project is called Artificial Intelligence for Assessment for Learning to Improve the 21st Learning and Teaching in the 21st Century. It started last year in the fourth quarter, and it goes on for 4 years. And in this project, there will be employed between 2 or 3 PhD students from the teacher education and from the computer science department working on artificial intelligence and machine learning. The budget is in the area of 19 million Norwegian crowns. And the goal of the project is actually to bridge how pedagogy and AI could be combined to help and support the teachers and learners in their daily activities. And in this specific project, we are looking into the principles of assessment for learning. And when you're writing an assignment, and in assessment for learning, the teachers then going to give every learner individualized feedback as they write to make sure that they are understanding their task and they are demonstrating what they are supposed to be learning or have learned for the last few weeks, and they should demonstrate that in writing a short assignment. And for the teacher then to provide continuous feedback in the writing process, it's tedious and difficult in a class of 25, 30 learners. They can manage to do it with 3 or 4, but it doesn't scale it well, so it's a methodology it's not that much used. And I think that by applying AI and machine learning, the teacher can then use this for every learner in the class and be able to have some automatic feedback and to give individualized personal feedback for the few learners who actually need personal feedback and where the machine can't actually do that. So there's a lot of interesting facets into this. And one of the challenges we are seeing in this project is that technology doesn't exist in a vacuum. The technology we're developing should be then used by educators in a practical setting. And to be able to do that, we need to understand how teachers and educators, what are the requirements for transparency, for explainable AI, to understand what's going on, to be in control of the AI systems, to trust the judgments and the feedback and how the AI system works, and kind of meet the ethical questions as well, and in the personal relationship between a teacher and the learner. So all these different aspects are being addressed as well, and that's part of the teacher education work. And we will also see how this project will affect the teacher education and offering for teacher training at the university colleges. And we also have to look into big data versus small data, and one challenge we're also facing is the access to test data. And there are some data available, but we need to have written assignments that have been graded and evaluated by teachers to see what kind of feedback are the teachers giving in the writing process. And big data versus small data, the challenge is that in Norway, there are about 60,000 learners at each level. If they have 3 or 4 or 5 assignments in every subject a year, that's about 300,000 assignments, which is the big data. But at a school, you might only have a few hundred. So the question is, how can we take the learning from the big data and apply that to small data? Where the big data is data where everything is analyzed. It's impossible to identify the person who has written the assignment. But in the small data, we need to know who has written what, so that the teacher can use that data to actually guide and help and support the individual learners. So there are some challenges there, and hopefully we'll see that some of this could be addressed by standardization. And I also think that to be able to process and create value of small data sets, we need to provide as much context as possible. We need to provide as much metadata as possible, and also to provide as much semantics as possible in the configuration of the system before starting to process the data, so that the domain for analytics is slightly narrower than the big domain of all written text, for example. And also we think there's an opportunity, knowing that we know that what the text is supposed to be about. We know what kind of learning outcomes the educators are looking for. And we also know that at the same time, about 25, 30 learners are writing the same text, trying to demonstrate the same learning outcomes. And maybe this could also be combined and used for providing better insight and feedback to the learner. And maybe be able to provide context and metadata and semantics will make the load and the work of the systems easier, and still be able to create a lot of value for the individual learner. So The project has just started. We are still in the kind of explorative phase, trying out a hypothesis to how we can do this. And we will publish relevant information at the website being mentioned as ai4afl.no. Currently, it's just forwards to the information site at the University College, but eventually it will be explored and populated with more relevant information. And thank you.
So thank you, Erlend. I was a bit worried today because we have all male panelists, but I'm glad to hear then that Hypatia is a female philosopher. So at least we have a little bit of not gender balance, but some females in as well, which we should be. So my first question comes into this exciting project is how much do you want to tackle what's typically referred to as federated learning, meaning that you have a student gives information for some reason, and then this information is then learned across students, meaning that if I do something with my students, it will also help another teacher, will also help another teacher. Is that like central part of your continuous learning, or is it training everything at once and then deploying everything at once and then deploying?
I think what you're mentioning are something I have been thinking about. We haven't discussed it in the team yet, but I think it's crucial to make this successful because we need to establish collaboration among teachers as well. And one way they could collaborate is actually to set up good written assessments, because at least in Norway and most European countries, we are following the same curricula. So we have the same expectations and the same learning outcomes. So having teachers do their own assessment for every learning outcome, I think it's not well used the resources. So at least my plan is to have tools that support the federation and support the collaboration among teachers in developing good written assessments, and also to see how we can combine the feedback and have the system to learn and improve and in providing good feedback to learners as the system is evolving and we have more and more learners doing these tasks. So I think it's a difference when we start on scratch with nothing, and 5-10 years down the road where we have maybe tens of millions of assessments being run through the systems and providing feedback to the learners. So in that learning process and in aggregation of data and insight, I think there's huge opportunities and interesting possibilities.
That's great to hear, and we'd gladly hear more about that in 15 minutes or so when we start the debate, because now we're going over to the last introduction by Skyfri, perhaps Skyfri, depending on how you pronounce it, English or Norwegian. The Skyfri team is one of the most experienced in solar industry in Norway, and they claim to have more than 100 years of combined experience on that. I'm sure that Aslan is not 100 years old, but he has some teammates then summed up, they become more than 100 years old. Because now Aslan Shamsuddin is supposed to talk about Skyfri. So Aslan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Morten. The goal of Skyfri is to make renewable energy intelligent. And we do it by having a vision of fully automating solar power plant. I'll walk you through the environment in which we are in, and then talk about the company, the challenge which we are facing, and the solution we are offering. So let's see. Yeah, so 63% of global energy demand is expected to originate from solar within 2050. That's a huge number, and a lot of investment is going into making this happen. And the goal of this is to actually the transition over to renewable energy globally to save our climate and planet. As we like to say, we are borrowing this planet for the future generations, and we need to give it back in the same or a better state as we have it. 80% of operations cost for a solar asset is manual labor. The assets are expected to last for 50 years after you build them, and most of the work to maintain it is actually manual. Skyfri is moving towards fully automated solar operations. Our AI-powered SaaS platform provides full financial and operational overview, identifying the root cause of underperformance, improving performance and returns, all in real time. So a little bit about us. We are a digital-first operator for a global solar industry. As you can see on the map on the right side, our headquarters are in Norway, although we are present in Canada, India, South Africa, and Singapore, and expanding. The company consists of two departments, so to say. One is Skyfri Intelligence, that's the software, the technology part, and the other one is Skyfri Energy. Those are the people who are day-to-day make sure that solar assets are actually maintained and operated. That's their job. And when you refer to so many years of experience we have, yes, that's the combined years of experience of our team. We are 70 people, and that includes both of the departments. And we are one of the most experienced solar energy team. The challenge we are facing is basically that investments in solar are growing exponentially, but assets are underperforming, creating a non-sustainable industry. So if you look into how solar is developed right now, that's big funds which are sent to build a huge solar power plant, which is several kilometers breadth and width and takes a huge area. And after the investment is done, there is an expectation of a return to pay off. And if maintenance is not done properly, basically the investment is not as attractive as it should be. And by improving that, by looking into typical issues like soiling, drippings, and clipping, and others, we are trying to make these investments as cheap as possible, as good as possible for investors. So asset operations are local, manual work, and with low data-driven insights on actual performance. So after the solar plant is built, usually you try, or during its planning, you try to find a team which will actually maintain it, and the team needs to be physically close to the location. And the locations for power plants is somewhere outside on the outskirts, hard to find people, hard to get to the plant. The plant is huge, you don't even know where to do the maintenance. A lot of scheduled maintaining where people just go rounds and rounds in these huge plants and do take tests, clean it, do repairs and stuff like that. Basically the data in the solar power plants, there are no moving parts, so everything is still. So when you go around and look at it, it's hard to tell that something failed here. But the good thing is that there are a lot of sensors in these panels, and the sensors are actually generating the data and sending it out. This data is used today for analysis, but not even close to the full potential of what can be done by using machine learning and other tools. And then comes our solution. So what we do is that we detect the root cause of underperformance utilizing AI and recommended actions in real time. As you can see on the left side here, a power plant has an expected output. This is what is planned by investors or by the ones who built the plant. And then there is the actual output, and there is always a difference. Sometimes actual can be even better than expected, but most times the expectations are a bit more optimistic. And when you try to understand why the expected is not as actual, you are facing a lot of challenges. Some of them are something you could actually do something about. Others you cannot actually do anything about. And what we are doing is that by reading real-time data and applying machine learning, we categorize the expected a waterfall, as we call it, so the difference between expected and actual output, and tell operators on a high level first know where the problem is lying, where it is lying today, where it's been for last week or month or so forth. Then we have a strong motor that is using the real-time data generates alarms on the plant. So we are reading the data for each equipment, and based on the data, we identify if there are any failing alerts, if something is not working properly, if something is underperforming or not, and connect the data to the digital twin of the plant. And that digital twin basically is used to visualize that on an image or a 3D version of a plant, as you can see on the right side of the slide. So what will happen is that operator, and there are different levels of them, like owner, asset manager, technician, depending on their need, they will look into the software and see that, okay, here and there we have this kind of problem and this kind of alarms, and they can go to the map, see exactly where the problems are, go to our CMMS system, which is a maintenance tool, and create a ticket to solve and resolve the issue, go to the plant, do what they are required, and resolve it. In the back end, the calculation is made to figure out which issues to focus on by prioritizing on how much generation you can increase or how revenue you can increase by making the change. Another thing which we are doing is that we give asset owners full financial and operational portfolio overview. So when I was describing the issue we are handling last on the previous slide, that was a plant-specific one. But the reality is that investors are funds, and they have portfolio of plants, and each portfolio of plants consists of many plants. And what we are doing is we are creating an aggregated picture of how the plants are performing, which are not performing, and the root causes of why the underperformance is happening, so that it's easier to coordinate the resources and finances in terms of how to improve the total cash flow from the assets the owner has. Yeah, and that's a short presentation about Skyfri.
And very interesting, Aslan. So how much of your machine learning work is testing in, let's say, theoretical scenarios, and how much of it is testing in real scenarios? Is that something you do? So
I'm
typical
not sure what you mean
situation,
by theoretical
typical
scenarios.
situation when training a machine learning is that you have some data set that is collected from before, and then you kind of get an accuracy or something like this. But here all your examples were in with real life world examples.
So we have real life now. We have on our customers, we have deployed this thing. It's getting data from on-premises farms over to a cloud platform, which we have. Store the data in our database, and we store the metadata about the plant in digital twin, and we use the real-time data to develop the algorithms. The algorithms are tested, but before the tests are already done, and now they're actually deployed. And there is always, so what we've been focusing on is to build a platform for data scientists to actually work and always renew the models. We have a team of 4 data scientists just working with data, and they are and the data they are working is real data from the plant. The thing is that as we are developing the platform further, the incident handling module, which we are building on top of our platform, that module is recording whether the incident or it gives us a feedback on whether our prediction of an alarm and the classification of that is correct or not. Based on that, we start generating historical data. But right now, the stream of data is the main source of our results. And the reason for why we are confident that that's the correct thing is that the main knowledge we have within the team of asset managers who actually know the electrical engineering, the physics of this. And in deploying machine learning, when we do the feature engineering part of it, we actually use physics, we use whatever we already have prepared in order to create features and train the model. And several places so where we need to have animal detection, where we need to have machine learning, we do that. But where there is the physical law which is covering the issue we are trying to see, then we are using that. I'm not sure if that's answering the question, but like an example, we can use current voltage and irradiation data from sun to create features which we are using for classifying tripping losses, for example. And that's a mix of physics and machine learning together, as I see it.
That's very interesting. A mix of two fields, machine learning and the physics world. So let's welcome the other speakers back on stage from Mygon and Hypatia. So maybe you can stop sharing. So we heard from several of you reasons for success, and what came up several times was team. At least about Aslan and Knut Magnar talked about the importance of having a team. But you didn't mention this, Alan. Alan, is team important for you also?
Yes, it is, and we are in the process of evolving our teams and finding people that are fit and have the expertise and knowledge we are looking for, and also being outside the metropole of Norway, located in the outskirts, it's slightly challenging to find the appropriate competencies to build a team. So, but we are working on it, and hopefully we will be substantially more people in near times. So at the moment we are not that big, but we have a huge global network that we are tapping into to solve all the challenges we are facing.
And do you have any tricks, Knut Magnar? If I were to develop my own startup, how should I get a successful team that apparently is so important?
That's a tricky question. It has a lot to do with luck, I think, and looking around in your own network and finding people that you feel you have the right connection with, and the what should I say, the chemistry that goes well together. But of course, you also need the expertise, and as I stated, also the common vision. You know, this common goal, the common drive, something that you all believe in. You can change, you can make a difference in a certain way as well. So that's definitely important, and in order to attract that, you know, it's all a cultural thing as well. You need to create something somewhere that attracts and that where people get to feel that they are themselves 100%, that they contribute, that they're in on something that's bigger than themselves.
So bigger than the individual is at least one aspect to think about. And,
exactly.
And something that is bigger than most of us is the education system, which you talked a lot about, Alan. And of course, in your world, it is a collaboration with Høgskolen i Østfold and some other places. What about you, Aslan? How important is the academic world to your organization?
Academic world is super important for us. So I'd say that we have this breadth of actually doing operations and maintenance on the field and developing software and doing data science. So if I can split that in three, I would say that data science or academics and getting that's our differentiator. That's how we can differentiate better from the competitors, and that's how we can deliver a better value than anyone else. And collaborating with institutions and universities is a very, very good way to both see what people are capable of doing, but recruiting people, but also getting a lot of ideas and inspirations. So there is this there is this bridge from where we do research, and that's very valuable, to when we take it over to actually offering it to the customers. And I think this collaboration is super important for us.
Mm. So I have this idea that the gap between academia and industry is becoming smaller and smaller and smaller, because we always try to do research that is applicable, applied in some way, and then at least most companies do some sort of innovation, and that is kind of borderline research as well. Is that does that fit your world also, Erlend? You that both have this academic and industry way of thinking?
Absolutely, and I think there's been a change for the last few years in how universities and university colleges look at themselves. They are more easy to get in contact with now. They're easier to have them collaborate, easier to have them contribute and participate in industry-related projects. I think that's a huge change, and it's really has helped us in getting in touch with the researchers that know things that we don't know. And I think there's at least with AI and other emerging technologies, there's a knowledge gap between the practices and what's on the research side. And so for us as a company to have contact with researchers that can help us close the bridge and help us do or use advanced technologies in an applicable way that creates value, I think is super important.
Right, but often it is a little bit different how me as a researcher is considered valuable and how a company is considered valuable. For example, I want to publish a lot because that's like looks good on my CV. But that might not be so important for a private company. Or what do you say, Knut Magnar? If I say I want to collaborate with you, but it's very important for me to at least publish 5 papers, is that acceptable in your world, or you don't want to collaborate at all?
No, I think it's important to show and to be able to give trust to your customers in some sense, and then the connection to the best practice of solving something often comes from the academic world. And I see also the academic world is now more into not solving something for its own sake, but solving something because it creates some kind of value. So I think for us it's important to have that what should I say, cooperation or that connection at least to the academic and what's happening in that world in order to show the world and to get self-confidence and feeling that what we are delivering is actually state-of-the-art artificial intelligence. And in that sense, publishing some article that might not be scientifically 100% methodology, but in order to sort of to bridge that is important as well. But we have an aspect of many things that build that trust, of course. Customers coming back, the churn rate low and stuff like that. But also the link to the technology that we are using, which needs to be state of the art, and that we need to develop all the time in order to deliver the accuracy that we need in the legal space in order to be relevant at all.
Absolutely, and one of our listeners, Silvina, is saying that this key is balance, academic publishing and applicability in every sector. And do you have any comment to this, Erlend?
Yeah, and I think it all kind of grills down to the business you are within. And I think from our perspective and my perspective, I think collaborating with researchers that publishes is good, because we want to drive or participate in driving the knowledge area forward And our goal is to provide better education for all. That's kind of the hairy, scary sign up on the wall. And to be able to do that, we have to look beyond our own capabilities. So if we can share knowledge and share insight and have more people apply similar technologies within the education sector, it will benefit society and it will benefit the education sector. And as a company, we need to compete in that domain and provide more pedagogical value. We need to compete on not closing technology in, but we need to compete on how to provide good pedagogical value, how to provide good user experiences. And that should be where we compete and not compete on technicalities and keeping things that should be open secret. And that's also why we are highly engaged in standardization, because that's the open way of making sure technology work together towards maybe a greater common goal, if we can put that like that.
Right. But is this different in different fields? In education, this is clearly obvious to me because education is something that is meant to benefit all. But what about you, Aslan, in the world of energy optimization? Do you keep yourself close to heart and secret?
No, we don't. I don't feel we do that at all. So the thing is, I would prefer to have a researcher who does publishing. That kind of shows that that researcher is actually renowned researcher getting published, and we get the chance to work with this person. That's a great thing. And then I think it's the same way as IT has developed and machine learning has developed. There is this need for people to collaborate outside of companies as well. And we really need and would like to have researchers to get others' opinions. And the best way to do that is to publish it. To get transition to renewable energy, I think there should be as less secrets as overall possible in this industry, because like we are on a ticking bomb and we need to save the world.
Yeah, ticking bomb, saving the world. And the last question for all participants, we always end with NORA.startup, and please be brief because we're running out of time. How can NORA and NORA.startup help exactly this? How can we save the world? How, if you take 5 years from now, you say NORA was very successful in helping me get up and running in some way. What would be the answer to this? Let's say, Knut Magnar, what do you think?
Well, I think NORA plays an important part in spreading the word about that, and it makes also all of us very conscious about what we're doing, giving us a network, giving us access to expertise and such. So it's definitely a major, what should I say, fuel or drive in bringing all these startups forward. So I think you play a very important part in that.
So network and access to expertise. Do you have anything to add, Erlend? What would be the success for NORA?
I think collaboration. And for NORA to support and foster collaboration among companies within similar domain, but also maybe in contrasting domains, so we can learn from each other. And collaboration is good. The Norwegian market is minuscule compared to the global market, so we need to think bigger than our own sandbox.
And what about you, Aslan? We're running out of time here.
There are a lot of things. There is one I would, which I actually experienced for not so long ago. There is a notion of knowledge out there and research out there, and I feel like NORA really helps to pinpoint this might be relevant for you. We had that with this big machines, supercomputers, and other lectures and information we're receiving from you, which is really helpful for us.
That sounds perfect. And if anyone's more interested in any of these aspects, please visit NORA.ai website. And please, for all the audience, please check in again at the next NORA webinar, which will be announced on the NORA.ai website. And to all the rest, have a nice weekend.